Hello fellow brawlers, I'm KairosTime and it is time to brawl. We're going to be going over version 16, or maybe this is version 17 of the tier list. We're starting, today's video is the solo tier list, and we're going to go with Showdown, then Takedown, then Lone Star, and then we'll even go over Graveyard Shift, which will be interesting because I think this is the only time we've ever had a Graveyard Shift tier list, and probably the only time we ever will have a Graveyard Shift tier list, because based off of what I'm seeing from the tweets on Twitter, it's likely not going to ever come back. Now, before we jump into this, I want to give a huge thank you to not only the tier list collaborators that are right over there, I also want to give a massive shout out to Brawl Stats for providing me with all the win rates and the use rates so that we could actually help make this tier list as accurate as we possibly could. Now, for these pro players here, they worked ridiculously hard to make sure that this was accurate, and so make sure you guys go check them out. I've got links to their social media in the description below, so yeah, do that. And then also stay subscribed for another video where we're going to go over the 3v3 modes tier list as well. Starting off, we've got the solo showdown tier list. Make sure you guys grab that screenshot before we move on. We're going to be covering all the changes that has happened since the last tier list. First of all, we've got Daryl moving from the A tier up into the S tier position, okay? He's got 2 new buffs, and now that allows Daryl to actually win a lot more of these 1v1 situations, a lot better than he used to before. Then we have Sandy moving down from the S tier into the A tier. With some recent nerfs, Sandy's kind of like no longer the overpowered brawler that he used to be. The fact that the duration of the super decrease has really impacted his viability. Still a very solid option though. Now Rico's moving from the B tier up into the A tier. His recent buffs just added to his survivability and allows him to definitely be justified as an A tier brawler. Using Robo Retreat, Rico's often able to escape some very tricky situations in solo showdown. Now Mortis is moving from the A tier down to the B tier. At higher trophy counts, more brawlers survive the end game, and Mortis's ability to avoid running into enemy players gets really tricky near the end, and so we feel like he just isn't quite as great of an option as he used to be. Shelly's also moving from the A tier down to the B tier. Since Band-Aid's removal, basically, since it's not as good, Shelly's just been falling further and further down the tier list. She's still a valuable option against some brawlers like Bull and El Primo for certain maps, but she is a little bit more meta specific and map specific. Bull is moving from the B tier into the non-ranged position. That decreased survivability in his health really hurt him a lot and just made him a lot less viable. And El Primo is also moving from the A tier clear down to the unranked category as well, because he's so vulnerable to those long-ranged brawlers or throwers. Now next we have the duo showdown tier list. Make sure you grab that screenshot. As you can see, Jean is replacing 8-Bit as the golden S tier brawler. 8-Bit is definitely a fantastic brawler and is a solid option for duo showdown, but it's just not as good as it used to be since his extra life star power got nerfed, and Jean is just so very good. His ability to create those 2v1 situations with his super is just irreplaceable. Barley's moving down from the S tier into the A tier. He's still an incredibly strong option. There just aren't as many maps to facilitate throwers, warranting that S tier position. Carl's also moving from the S tier into the A tier. He's a pretty decent long-range option, but the fact that he doesn't deal as much damage when he's spamming those shots up next to a wall, it just makes him a little bit less viable than before. And of course, he has a very low use rate, so we felt like that was justified. Penny's moving from the B tier up into the A tier. Her buff has allowed Penny's damage with her main attack to be a lot more relevant. And in duo showdown, where brawlers do tend to clump up quite a bit, Penny's a really solid option. Spike is moving from the B tier up into the A tier. Despite the nerf to his curveball star power, his versatility and his burst damage and range is just so good. And besides that, competitive players will actually be able to play Spike very well without his curveball star power, which is a very good reason to use him in duo showdown. Ems is being added. She's starting out in the A tier for duo showdown. Kind of similar to Spike, her ability to slow down those enemies makes for a really great support brawler. Also, her attack does a lot of damage over an area and can hit multiple targets, and she can do a ton of damage, which makes her a pretty solid option in duo showdown. Now Dynamite is moving from the A tier down into the B tier. Kind of similar to Barley, there aren't really enough closed off maps to warrant Dynamite as an A tier brawler. Poco is moving from the A tier into the B tier. He's still a very strong support option, but his range means that he ends up just reaching a little bit too short. And while his healing super can be incredibly impactful for survivability, supers that threaten enemies with damage are often the better option. in Duo Showdown. Now BB is moved from the A tier into the B tier, especially with her nerfed health, super, and star power. She's just not as good as she used to be. Pam is also moved from the A tier into the B tier. She's still a great option, just not as good as she used to be, and the thing with her is she just tends to struggle to deal a lot of damage from a long range, and that little extra health from her star power does help sometimes, but not quite enough to warrant her being in the A tier. Now Shelly's being removed from the B tier for two reasons. First of all, is because she just gets outranged by so many of the brawlers in Duo Showdown, and the second reason is the fact that her Band-Aid star power just doesn't benefit her as much as it used to be. Bull's also being removed from the B tier. It's a very ranged meta right now, even in Duo Showdown, and with his HP nerf, he's just not as good as he used to be. Okay guys, up next we've got the Lone Star tier list. Make sure you grab that screenshot so you do not miss this. Okay, we're gonna have Leon replacing Sandy as the Golden S tier brawler. He is just so good. He has one of the highest win rates. He has one of the highest use rates for Lone Star, and he's just so solid right now. He can ambush brawlers, he can cycle his super, he can use either star power, is actually really good right now. It's just, he's the assassin that you do not want to be playing against in Lone Star. Daryl's moving from the A tier up into the S tier. His recent buffs has helped him quite a bit, and the fact that he can actually deal a lot of extra damage with his revamped star power or rolling reload star power just allows him to be able to get those kills a lot better than he used to. Jean is moving from the B tier up into the S tier, as the meta in Lone Star has diversified from what it was way back when we did the last tier list. Jean has really distinguished himself in his ability to cycle supers off of lower health targets and also pull them if he needs to, and his Spirit Slap is just so good. Brock is moving from the S tier into the A tier. He does have really good range, but there are other brawlers that can do a lot of range or damage from a distance as well and have a faster reload speed, so they offer a little bit more consistency. He has lower health, and that means that he dies easier, and there's a lot of assassins that can take him out pretty easily. Mortis is moving from the B tier up into the A tier. Using Coiled Snake, Mortis is significantly able to punish squishier brawlers and is a very solid option if you play him correctly. Crow is moving from the B tier into the A tier, kind of for similar reasons to Mortis. The meta kind of shifted a little bit, settled a little bit as well, and Crow is a lot more able to kind of navigate the mode while avoiding those brawlers that can do a ton of damage or burst damage from a distance like Piper. Carl is actually moving from the B tier into the A tier. He does a lot of damage from a distance. He's very good at taking out those squishy brawlers with just a couple of attacks, and his super actually allows him to not only escape but also take down brawlers depending on which star power you're using. And Tara is surprisingly moved from the non-ranked position up into the A tier. She was definitely overlooked before. Her super allows her to win practically any 1v1 situation, along with being able to come on top of group interactions. Now with 9 other targets on the map, she has a lot of opportunities for her to cycle her super, and she has a great offense and defense with that super if she really needs to use it as such. Bo's moving down from the A tier into the B tier. Early on, Lone Star featured a lot of grassy maps, which really benefited Bo, but those have been swapped out for other maps, and that means that Bo is a less viable option, although you can still play him. Shelly is also moving from A tier into the B tier for the same reason, and Ems is starting out in the B tier. She has respectable burst damage, she does lack some range, but on those maps that are a little bit more close range, she can really deal a ton of damage really quickly, and it can actually play pretty well in Lone Star. Now Bull's being removed from the tier list from the B tier. Melee brawlers really struggle now, and his one map that really worked well for him, which was Island Invasion, just isn't there anymore. So yeah, especially since this nerf, he's not solid. Pam is also being removed from the B tier as well. She just doesn't have that burst potential to really take out enemy brawlers, and BB is being removed from the B tier as well. The knockback is really tricky for her to actually finish brawlers off because they end up just being able to run away. And a lot of brawlers are just longer range, meaning that it's tricky for her to get close enough to even deal damage. Next, we've got the Takedown tier list. Starting off with Pam actually replacing Bull as the Golden S tier brawler. She has really good DPS with a pretty decent reload speed as well. She has high survivability with her good HP and her turret. And then also the fact that she actually has some range allows her to kind of like outcompete brawlers like Bull. And consistently, she has one of the highest win rates in the game, above 700 trophies. Her ranged DPS keeps her relatively safe against the bot and her turret. 8-Bit is moving from the A tier into the S tier. Okay, now despite his slow movement speed, 8-Bit more than makes up with it with his insane amount of DPS and his really long range. In fact, he actually has the highest win rate above 700 trophies. Granted, he is compared to like Bull and Colt that have a much higher use rate, so it's kind of apples to oranges, but still it's very impressive. Now Daryl's moving from the A tier into the S tier. Those two buffs are so good, and he can deal tons of damage with that 1 star power, the rolling reload, and really he can run away, whatever he needs to do, more survivability. Daryl's really solid in the mode right now. Dynamite is moving from the B tier into the A tier. As a thrower, he's able to deal a lot of damage behind cover, hiding from those walls, and that's really a great way for you to do well with Dynamite in the mode. Ems is being added straight out into the A tier. Now at mid-range, Ems' DPS is one of the most impressive in the game. Her super also provides really great control and allows her to keep enemy players away from her for those moments when you think they're focusing on you instead of the boss, which they shouldn't be focusing on you either way, but still, it happens. Now Bo's moving from the A tier down into the B tier. He's got really good DPS, he's got decent range as well, but there are just so many much better options in the A tier and the S tier, so we felt like the B tier was the right place for him. Finally guys, we have Graveyard Shift, the newest mode, and probably not going to stay around here for very long. In fact, it might even be gone by the time I release this video. I don't know. Either way though, I'm excited to cover this. Now, the trick to having a Graveyard Shift brawler is range, chip damage, burst damage, healing abilities. Those are the best Graveyard Shift brawlers. So it's no wonder that Tick is the golden S tier brawler. He has that range, he's able to chip brawlers from a distance, and he's not penalized for having a low amount of HP because that health decay is proportional to your starting health. Barley's kind of similar to Tick, except for the fact that he has that star power that allows him to heal with every single attack, and that is just absolutely insane. Allows him to heal so much and stay alive for so long. 8-Bit is also in the S tier. He gets a do-over with extra life, and that is all that he needs to be classified as an S tier brawler since he respawns with full health. Also, his ability to deal damage from up close or far away is really beneficial for 8-Bit. Piper's also in the S tier. She has great burst damage, great range, and can really take brawlers out really easily, allowing her to basically fully heal back up after each individual kill. Now Jean is also in the S tier. Just that range, that chip damage, he's so solid. You guys know that. In the A tier, we have Sandy. His super actually zones off areas for a significant period and allows healing as well with that healing Windstar power, and allows him to just kind of like avoid fire from enemy players. Pam is also in the A tier. She has that range, she has that chip damage, she has that healing. She's just very solid. Now she is a little bit more vulnerable to some of those S tier brawlers, but you know, she's still very A tier and very solid. Ems is starting out in the A tier as well. She doesn't have the greatest range, but that burst damage is just so solid from her, and that allows her to really contest those 1v1 matchups against brawlers if they do end up getting too close to her. Carl starting out in the A tier as well. Really great range, really great HP, survivability, and that super also allows him to kind of escape some tricky situations as well. Spike is being added to the A tier because of his ability to do that chip damage from such a long range as well. Crow, he's so good. That chip poison allows him to persistently deal damage to players, and they kind of like, it really puts a lot of pressure on players, and his super allows him to finish off players really easily as well. Leon, another amazing brawler because of his burst potential. He gets that super charged up once, and then he can basically choose to take out enemy brawler whenever he wants to, really. Brock is also starting in the A tier, kind of a lesser version of Piper. He has the range, he has the damage, he's just a really solid option. Dynamite, once again, you got throwers in here that can avoid taking damage while hiding behind a wall. Dynamite is a very solid option. Not quite as good as Tick and Barley, but still great. Now in the B tier we have Penny, who is a solid option if you can charge up her turret. You put that turret down and that turret will be so annoying to everybody else. Rico's also a pretty good option as well because of his ability to bounce those shots around. He just offers so much control, and he has that decent range as well. Colt is kind of similar to Rico, but kind of a lesser version because he doesn't have as much range. And then we have Tara, who can be really good if you have her healing shade star power, because once you drop that healing shade star power, it'll just keep her alive basically forever. But it does take a long time for her to charge that up, and that's why she is a B tier brawler. Poco, kind of a similar thing here, where he does need to charge up his super in order for him to be really beneficial. He is a really solid option in a duo graveyard shift though, when he has that Da Capo star power, Da Capo, depending on who you're talking to, to help heal his teammate. Bo is in the B tier as well. He's not the best, but he does work and he does have that range. Mortis can work in the B tier as well. You just need to make sure you're playing on a map where it's not so wide open, so that you can focus on trying to take out some of those throwers and some of those squishy or close range brawler or long range brawlers. Daryl, kind of the same reason of Mortis. Just the fact that he can punish those low health ranged brawlers by supering up onto them really allows him to do pretty well. Finally, guys, I wanted to briefly just show you guys the overall version 16 solo mode. These are just the solo brawlers. These are how each brawler in the game does for solo modes. You'll notice Jesse is clear down at the bottom. You'll notice 8-Bit's all the way up at the top. And this really does a good job at kind of showing you which brawlers are going to be the best for those solo modes. If I were you and you were a new-ish player and you do not have a whole lot of brawlers maxed out, I would choose one of those S tier brawlers to get a star power to help participate in power play. And then when we do go over the 3v3 modes, make sure you have an S tier brawler for 3v3 modes, so that you can kind of like have a solid brawler no matter which mode is going on. You know, start by covering those very simple bases, and then you can start getting other brawlers maxed out so you have more options when you're playing power play. Once again, guys, I wanted to give a huge thank you to brawlstats.com, as well as the pro tier list collaborators. It really helps with putting this together. I do not come up with these tier lists. I help organize them, but these guys do it. I broadcast it to you, but this is their tier list, and this is where the solid information comes from. Each one of them is incredibly skilled, and a lot of them also have some really great social media links, especially if you're interested in following like high tier gameplay on YouTube or something like that. Once again, guys, make sure you stick around for the 3v3 tier list as well. I am currently, this is my last night in Japan. I am flying over to Busan, Korea for the Brawl Stars World Championship tomorrow, which would have been yesterday or like 3 days ago, depending on when I release this video. Anyway, super stoked to be doing that. You guys will have to let me know what you think about that. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.